How can they be respectful of the power that they have?
Yeah.
How can they make an impact on the culture that is in negative? I mean, there's all these different elements that come out
The
now.
more we talk about it, I'm gonna actually, you know what? The more we talk about it, Scorsese, you're right. Comic book movies are superhero movies and things like that. They are not cinema. They are literature. And because you don't know anything about literature, you should just shut the. I'm kidding.
Dreams.
Welcome to Tone Deaf, a conversation podcast, and I'm with the distinguished, the honorable Richard Damon Blacksher.
Damon S.
Richard Damon S. Blacksher. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm fantastically well. Certainly not fine by far, but you could say I'm close to spectacular. Anybody know what that's a reference to? That's music. This is a movie podcast, film, media. TV.
So today,
I'm not gonna take this seriously. I was taking this seriously.
I know you're
like,
not.
Right until we started recording.
I know you're
don't
not.
Why. I'm sorry.
I know you won't. Today, which is why it is apropos that today we are going to be talking about comic books. Comic books specifically, as they have been
ruined movies.
Shot
terribly. Amusement park fodder. Fiddle faddle is what I call it.
I sense a bit of sarcasm in that statement.
Again, I'm not taking anything seriously.
I do think that we will probably touch on the legend Scorsese and some of his conversations, but we want to dig into superhero movies. I kind of want to talk about, I guess, the history of them, where they have developed to, its impact, and potentially where we see them going to. So, as far as superhero movies, let's get this off the back. Give me your top 5 superhero movies. It doesn't matter what.
Top 5, my favorite or my
your top 5
movies?
favorite.
Okay.
It's always top 5 favorite.
Okay, favorite. Not. This doesn't mean that I think these are the greatest.
No, your top 5
But these are my
favorite. We're talking about is it as far as an impact to you.
Impact for me, movies. Number 5 is gonna be Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 4, Ant-Man. Number 3, Infinity War. Number 2.
You know this doesn't have to be just MCU.
Oh.
That's why I'm worried.
Maybe. Dang,
I'm worried about your
about
list.
that.
I'm worried about your list if Ant-Man is
Shoot.
top 5. But I'm not judging you, so
Okay,
you continue.
top 5 superhero movies of
all time. Superhero movie all time. It could be Meteor Man. I don't care, but
Meteor Man is actually pretty tight. We don't talk about Robert Townsend needs his flowers. I can honestly, whenever I think about superhero movies, the only thing I think of when I think about like what impacts me as a person, it always goes back to Iron Man 1. And you know this about me.
Mm-hmm.
I love the character Iron Man. In any iteration, I love Tony Stark. I love Riri Williams.
Rest in peace, Tony Stark.
Rest in peace.
Thank you for saving us all.
Yeah, you. So honestly, nothing really, anything else. If it's not Iron Man, it's good, and I'll judge it accordingly. I can tell you my top 5 like weird superhero movies that probably shouldn't have been made. The Spirit is really weird. It probably should have been made, but I'll rewatch it all the time, every time. 300.
We consider that is a comic. That is a comic. You're right.
300, Watchmen, V for Vendetta, anything Alan Moore wrote, I love it. And I guess the final one, Road to Perdition, was a comic book. If you don't know, I teach English to 8th graders, and the way I do that, and it's pretty cool. I work at a cool school, at a really good school, and I don't know if it's because they like my family, but they let me I don't want to say they let me get away with a lot of stuff, but my curriculum, I teach graphic novels. So if you take my class,
fun fact, I thought I had ruined my chances of getting a good grade in my history class. The teacher came in one day and he was really visibly upset, and I mean and then he goes on a rant about the movie 300. and he goes on a rant talking about the inaccuracies
Yeah.
of the movie.
Yes.
And then finally, I had to raise my hand because you know me, I'm a troll and I can't let stuff like that slide. And I'm like, excuse me, Mister, I don't even remember what his name was. And I'm like, but you're aware that 300 is based off of a comic book, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not supposed to 100%. Now there are some historical things that it's based off of, but this is not. This is a comic book movie.
And this is where I think and I think,
but I don't think he knew that it was a comic movie. That the idea of the 300 Spartans is a
right.
comic.
And I think that's where people mess up with comic book movies. And there's multiple ways of doing it. I mean, okay, I guess if we're still going, just doing my top 5. Scott Pilgrim's in there.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
You don't get to say Scott Pilgrim's a good movie because I showed you Scott Pilgrim.
It's a good, and I'm immediate. It's a good movie. You introduced me to the movie. It's a good movie. Scott Pilgrim Saves the World. Is that what it's called?
Yes. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Versus the World. Yeah.
When that movie came out on DVD, we went to your mom's house.
DVD.
Yes, this is how long ago it was.
Yeah, when movies
I
came
bought
out.
the DVD.
When people bought DVDs.
We were at your mom's house in San Bernardino. It was you, me, your cousin, Aaron.
I think it was New Year's.
It might have been.
New Year's
and I was
Eve.
like, guys, this is the best movie. You guys have to watch it with me.
I don't know about the best movie. It was a good movie, though.
The movie is fantastic.
It was a good movie.
Anyway.
I'll give you that. It was a good movie.
Anyway. I don't even know what to say anymore.
So you say that's your 5th?
That might be my 2nd, actually. Iron Man, Scott Pilgrim, Watchmen. I don't like Zack Snyder, but Watchmen is good.
It's 300 there.
Oh, you know what?
Didn't Zack do 300?
He did 300.
Did he do 300?
Okay, I'm going to change it. Iron Man 1, Scott Pilgrim, Dark Knight, 300. And then...
I was wondering if we were going to get a Batman in there.
Yeah, of course we got to get a Batman. I want to get either want to give another Batman or Iron Man 3 because Iron Man 3 is the best Christmas movie that the MCU has ever made. So I don't know. I got 4. I'll just leave it at 4. What's yours?
Superman 2. This is in no order.
Okay.
Superman 2. Christopher Reeves, the GOAT.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Even though I'm a fan of Henry is it Cavill?
Henry Cavill?
Cavill?
Henry Cavill.
I'm a fan of him. I guess coming after
Henry
that,
Cavill?
whoever that dude was that did Superman Returns. Let's just pretend.
You don't like Brandon Roth?
I throw that into the same book as that other Hulk movie.
Well, have you watched Legends of Tomorrow? Have you watched any of the Arrowverse stuff?
Yes.
And you don't like Brandon Roth?
Yeah. I really like Henry. I like him. I like him for that.
Okay. Keep going. Yeah.
So Superman 2, Blade 2. Yeah, Blade 2. Even though I think Blade 1 was the thing that set the precedent, I just favor the second movie more. Wesley Snipes, the God.
Tax God.
I gotta throw Black Panther in there just for impact and just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Dark Knight. And then I have to put The Incredibles.
Oh, superhero.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad. Man, interesting. It's interesting that
I put Incredibles, and I think that movie really deserves.
The music is fantastic.
It is, and it tackles
the metaphors.
It tackles all the issues. It's almost as if it's a spoof, but it's not, because it tackles all the issues of being a superhero.
Yeah.
And this idea that you're doing what you believe is a great good to the people who you are servicing. But what happens, since we see this in almost every superhero movie, there's epic battles, but they don't really ever show us. They hint on it in the Man of Steel, especially in the Batman versus Superman. They hint on it with Iron Man's entire arc, and just the idea,
especially in the first Spider-Man movie.
They do it with that too.
What's his name? Tom Holland.
Oh, the first one.
Spider-Man. Tom Holland. Spider-Man.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. But yeah, just the idea that there is it's like yeah, we saved millions of people, but like thousands died in the process.
Right.
And then it's just like this idea of, and if it's not people, because Incredibles doesn't really talk about people dying, but a lot of what they talk about is like
Infrastructure.
damages and
Right.
things like that. And do
Who's
we
gonna pay
really
for this?
want you to be these people who can just operate any way that they want? And you even see Batman, who, the greatest Batman, the greatest Batman actor of all time, Sir Ben Affleck.
The greatest Batman.
He's the best Batman. But he talks about this idea that here is his super powerful guy, and he's operating in a way that's unchecked. And what happens if they decide they want to do different? Who can control them?
Which is
so I
ironic.
like how there's this kid movie.
Yeah.
This Disney movie.
Yeah.
And they're talking about these really deep ideas about literally it's Uncle Ben. Yep. With great power comes great responsibility, and how do you deal with this? And then it talks about identity. How do you live in a world where you have these things that you're proud of, but the people are telling you that you shouldn't be proud of them? And it's a whole bunch of levels and things and whatever. But hey, Richard is blocking the because we're not doing product placement. I can't afford to pay these people.
Well, what I can say about this product though is that I'm loving it.
Oh, you mean you didn't get to have it your way?
No. See, whenever I get something to drink, I always got to make sure it makes me feel like singing. Ba-da, ba, ba, ba.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay, so one thing. Okay, actually, no. Yep. This is a good way to go.
Okay.
I'm gonna start by talking about the men, but this is gonna be a big thing when we come to the female superhero characters. You look at the very
female superhero characters?
you look at the very early. You're not getting me canceled.
What are you talking about? You heard? I say podcasts. I'm the podcast king.
When you look at the old superhero movies, you go back to like the early 1900s, especially like Superman.
1930,
it was like some guy that wasn't really very muscular.
Nope.
He was like he was 1930s built.
Yeah.
And Family Guy actually has a thing about him. Yeah, like this.
Bully.
Come on. And it just seems like he's just sucking in his stomach and puffing out his chest, but he doesn't really have much muscle definition.
Right.
And he's a big guy, but then you start to see as we get into like the 60s this idea that even though nothing about Superman's character has to do with his actual physique, but it has everything to do with his chemical makeup and how that interacts with the sun. But we got to this point where now we're going to build these macho looking characters where now they've got 6-packs, 8-packs, and they've got the pectorals and they've got the shoulders and they've got all of these. And now we were starting to see these characters as a physical specimen.
Yes. To where it's a plot point.
Yes.
I think about Captain
He-Man,
America.
all of these guys, where they're just like these really bulky, muscular, like wrestlers almost. This is basically what inspired the look of wrestlers.
And the flip too. Wrestlers inspired the look of heroes. So what happens when we talk about physique, and when we talk about physique of characters, superhero characters in film and in media and TV, what happens is the 80s. You have these kids who are now these baby boomers who were raised by these, people who fought in World War II. And these people who fought in World War II were not muscular. So, the people who are writing these comic books and writing these TV shows.
They might have been muscular, but the style of the day was such where you wouldn't, you wouldn't see. The idea wasn't to wear a muscle shirt, and even though they wore some skimpy stuff back then too.
They did. I was about to say, just looking at. I say when I look at my unit, God, when I look at my the unit I teach about World War II through comics. Again, that depiction is not. Those aren't buff dudes, but what happens is these are those dudes who got back from World War II. They raise these kids, and they raise those kids in a very, very hard way. So those kids grew up in the 60s and 70s. Were like, "Yo, I don't like this," and they ended up drawing what they imagined their fathers could be or what they could be. So that's why we have He-Man, and He-Man has the most ridiculous pecs on pecs. And then that even bleeds into wrestling, right? That's the reason why Hulk Hogan is literally Hollywood. Hulk Hogan was the very first time we saw a guy look like that. Compare Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair in his time, right? So we have this idea of this superhero persona that feeds into what masculinity is, what being a male looks like. And then that's why we literally in the 90s, if you ever see, Google Captain America in the Captain America comics in the 90s, and it's gross.
He doesn't look like Chris Evans.
He does not look like Chris Evans at all. He has Captain America in the 90s has a G cup, and that's all I gotta say.
So I know a lot of this has to do with, and I'm this is what I've been doing on my phone. I haven't been ignoring you, but in '64, there was the obscene, indecent, and profane act,
which is what made them cover up Wonder Woman.
Yes. And there was a point in which this was reversed, I think.
Mm-hmm. This is where we get the Comics Code of Authority.
Yes. Where you had, because the funny thing is,
I say I'm smart? Like, how do I be knowing this stuff?
So man? The funny thing is, when you think of a character, a perfect character to view with this code would be
Wonder Woman.
Well, I was gonna say, we could talk about Wonder Woman, but I was gonna say the Joker, because the Joker before this was an awful guy.
Yes, they had to tone Joker down.
Like he was an awful. I think he like beat Robin to death in one point. He was. It was
that didn't happen until like the 80s.
Was it? Yeah. Maybe that's after they flipped it.
So what happens? The first iteration of Joker we see, Joker is literally just a criminal, but it's not even that he's deranged. He's just the worst of humanity. Don't they have him like he got created by getting? He was in like a vat of. It depends. That's the thing about Joker. It depends.
That's the funny thing is there's not a lot of origin stuff about the Joker. Right. It's just the Joker. We get introduced to him as already being the guy. Like I think in one comic he was like he worked for a mob guy and then ended up rising through the ranks, but he was already a bad guy. There was no talk of how he became a bad guy.
Right. And exactly. That's the thing about the Joker's origin, which is what makes Joker such a great character, because not even the Joker believes his own origins. Alan Moore has a comic book called The Killing Joke.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
Alan Moore, who wrote Watchmen, V for Vendetta, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. The Killing Joke is, by all intents and purposes, what we consider this is the Joker origin story.
What's part of what influenced Heath Ledger's character, and he emphasized that in that I think he tells 3 different stories about how he got his scars.
Yep.
And this idea that either he doesn't know his own story or he's so deranged and he's always teetering on insanity or competence, and it's like,
and in that book, Joker is adamant to Batman, because the whole point of The Killing Joke is we'll tie this back into movies, but the whole point of Killing Joke is Joker is trying to push Jim Gordon to the point of insanity so that Jim Gordon could become a Joker.
Well, that's the thing, and I think he is of all of the villains, he seems to have the greatest sense of he's the most self-aware.
Yes, he has
this idea
that sense of hubris.
And the funny thing is again, he talks about it. It's like, I know I can't win a straight up fight with Batman. I know I can't do that. But what I can do is I can start a series of fires all around him, and keep him occupied. Right. And then that way now I can keep doing what I'm doing, because if it's just me versus him, he's gonna beat the crap out of me. But what if I start to try to turn the guys closest to him, or I go against the guys who he loves, or I do these things that makes his job harder and makes my job more fun.
Which is why I don't like the movie The Joker. Because we got to stay on topic.
We'll get back to that.
No, we got to stay on topic.
No, we'll get back to that. Okay. Whoa, because I wanted to go somewhere, but
where are you going with this?
We'll get back to that.
Where are you going with this?
Because I still wanted to go back to how we got the types of characters that we got today, just overall. And I wanted to. We'll come back to the mental makeup of a lot of these heroes and villains, but I want to talk more about the physical and how we built these characters and who they were made to look like. And you look at all of the cartoons that we used to watch as kids,
Mm-hmm.
the comics, and they were of these really, 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 really manly men.
Again,
These guys that are super built. And the flip side of that is you got these hypersexualized
women.
women,
Right.
and this idea that here is the man. Here is the ideal man and woman. The ideal man has a speedo, and he's got like pecs on tops of pecs on top of, and the ideal woman has a skimpy bikini.
Yes.
And she doesn't have abs and all that stuff, but she has a small waist, wide hips.
Do you know about the golden era, like DC? Okay, DC golden era comic books.
Should we blame DC for this? Is it DC's fault?
It is DC's fault. DC golden era comic books are what launches that. There's a show called Doom Patrol right now, and I oh my god, we can talk about it later. But Doom Patrol is probably the greatest comic book show, like, period of all time. I've seen a lot of comic book shows. I almost didn't watch Doom Patrol. Anyway, but you have these people who are depicted as like, the Barnum and Bailey things. Like, you can't, if you're a kid and you live in, like, Montana, there's no way you're gonna go see Barnum and Bailey unless they come to your town. So DC Comics presented these acrobats, and presented these muscular men. There's a guy, I can't remember his name right now, but his superpower is if he flexes a muscle, he can change dimensions. So I flex a muscle, I can bring ice cream and put it in your hand right now. And it's golden era. That's like
we can have a
40s.
whole episode that's just based on
the
variety of superpowers and what they
I
they are.
Pride myself.
Oh man.
Me and my homeboy Jason. We pride ourselves on knowing the most obscure superpowers.
Some of them are really crazy.
Some of them are my favorite. I can't remember his name, but my favorite is there's a guy whose superpower, he might be a mutant. So this is like X-Men character. His superpower is he can teleport to escape from danger. However, when he teleports, as soon as he lands anywhere else, it's going to be a destruction level event.
Nice.
Right.
So I gotta escape this danger, but the place I teleport to,
right,
I'm gonna destroy a lot of lives.
Right.
I like isn't it Big Bertha?
Big Bertha, yes.
Where she's a small, slender woman.
That is, she's a model.
And she turns into like a 600-pound
wrestler. She's like the Blob. And she's black. And that's the dopest part.
Wait, was she black? Is she black before?
She's always been black.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So she turns into a large. And Big Bertha is matter of fact. Fun fact. Yes. I used to name that was the first name of my camera.
That's funny.
So some of the very early shots, like the file names.
Yeah.
It says Big Bertha on it because I had named my camera Big Bertha.
That's funny.
But yeah, so
going back to it though, have you ever read have you seen the movie about the guy who created Wonder Woman?
No.
So here's the story about how Wonder Woman was created.
It's like a documentary or something?
No, it's like a movie. It's a biopic.
Okay.
I think it's Ewan McGregor who's the star. Anyway, long story short, the guy who created Wonder Woman was a professor at some like super really good college in America, and his wife taught there too. I think this is like the 30s or 40s, and then the guy starts an affair with his a student. So his wife is very intelligent. His wife is very put together, pristine.
Mm-hmm.
The girl who he starts an affair with is promiscuous, free spirited, also intelligent because she's at that same school. And in the movie, they all end up having like this one relationship together. So the wife starts dating the same girl. They're all dating it's a polyamorous relationship, right? That guy is inspired by the fact that wow, I have a good thing with two women. How come I just can't have this good thing with one woman?
This woman that looks fantastically great.
But
can beat the crap out of anybody.
Exactly. Be intelligent, witty, and then again beat the crap out of everybody. Be a warrior. So he makes Wonder Woman. So when we talk
so
about
promiscuous
right, when we're
relationship
talking
was the birth
about
of
yes, when we're talking about why does Wonder Woman look this way? Why is this depiction of the DC Trinity? The DC Trinity is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
yes.
Why is it that we have Superman, who is a refugee, escaped from, but is also the best of what a man can be, and Bruce Wayne, who is the best of what capitalism can be,
Mm-hmm.
and you have Wonder Woman, who is what is Wonder Woman? The best of what a woman could be, but from a man's perspective.
Yes.
That's wild as hell.
Well, I mean, come on, it's America. Everything
It is America.
Everything is from
A white
everything
man's
is from
perspective.
a white man's. I'm gonna say, come on,
Duh.
come on. I mean, what do you do?
I just think we need to acknowledge that. So when we see, I think the last time, no, I'm not even going front. I cried during superhero movies now. It's probably because I have a son. I realized this with Coco. When Coco came out,
I'm not gonna lie. At the
Yo.
end, when the grandma started to sing, I almost lost. You know, when
Coco
Moana
messed me
when
up.
Moana was
Yo,
on the
bro, when she said
when
"I
Moana
am Moana,"
when she was
that
about to
part,
give up,
and did
and her grandmother came
yeah.
back as the Stingray,
yeah, that got me.
and basically talked her back. You know,
That got me.
what is it with Disney and grandmas?
I don't know, man.
I don't know, but it definitely got me.
It
But
got
but
me.
so it's funny. So then you juxtapose that to what we're seeing now. Even with DC, they've still kind of managed some of those sexual undertones because you've got Gal Gadot,
Gal Gadot.
who is.
I have a thing.
We're not even gonna get into that.
Nope, I'll say it on camera. I have a thing for women from Israel. Gal Gadot, Natalie Portman.
Well, here's the thing. So you
Holla at
can
me,
compare her
No, I'm kidding.
to
Or-
the superheroes that are women in the MCU,
right.
and almost none of them are
Right.
sexualized except for maybe
Black-
kind of like Gamora.
Black Widow.
Black Widow
sir.
will be the only one, but she's also not the strongest, so she kind of needs that. If you think about who the strongest women superheroes,
right.
none of them are sexualized.
No.
You don't see
But that's the
You
thing-
don't see Scarlet Witch sexualized.
But that's the thing about about not just the MCU, but Marvel Comics. Stan Lee did a really good job of making sure that we know the whole point of Marvel is
Yeah.
that these heroes, they have a flaw about them, but
Yes.
we're gonna make them the most powerful. With this flaw that you'll see, DC has the opposite problem. DC is always sought to be, we're going to show the most powerful beings,
and this has
struggling
always
with the
been
smallest stuff.
this has always been why I've always favored Marvel too,
Right,
because we talk about the relatability of superheroes,
right,
and like with a lot of Marvel characters, these are people who either experienced certain accidents or underwent certain tragedies or different things here or there that, other than the mutants who were born the way they were born,
but even with that, that's still a flaw.
but even there, yeah, exactly. It's
Mhm.
seen as a mutation, like a
Right.
thing that and some of them don't even like their mutation
Right.
because not all of them are cool. So it's like this
Imagine
idea
being
that
Spike.
there's a lot of them that's
Yeah.
like, yo, this is not very advantageous for my normal life as a human being to have these certain things.
Right,
Whereas you compare it to a billionaire like Bruce Wayne or some alien like Superman who has no weaknesses.
he has
even,
one weakness,
and even yeah, well,
but the weakness literally is like he brought the weakness.
yeah, but it's like even when he is killed, apparently when you kill Superman, you have to also kill Superman at the molecular level. If you don't, because of the power of the sun, he'll just self-regenerate.
Right.
So he's really, 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 really great. So his powers are always, it's always, like you said, smaller powers compared to, you look at these, and it could also be the way that they wrote the stories too. They also wrote the stories to make these characters
And that's
seem more
yeah.
relatable.
That's the thing about DC, and which is why DC didn't understand for the longest time how to make a good movie. They can make a good Superman movie because Superman is a popular character.
Yeah.
They can make a good
And
Batman movie, but that's because Tim Burton. DC didn't do that. Warner Brothers didn't do that. Tim Burton is who said, this is how you can translate this to the screen.
And every Batman is in some way loosely based off of
Tim Burton.
what they saw on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, Tim Burton sets the precedence. Even this new one coming out, I haven't even seen the trailer, but it's like, oh, there's Tim Burton all over this.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea of this dark character, that's right. Tim Burton, you know?
Exactly. Because when you look at the Batman comics, it's not that. I mean, the original comics, it's not that dark. It's it's a guy who's a billionaire and is a detective.
See, that's a funny thing about Superman. I mean, not Superman, Batman. Batman, right. Our influence of Batman has been heavily changed based off of how he's been depicted on TV and film.
Right.
Because the funny thing is, when I think of Batman, I immediately go back to the Batman cartoons.
Yeah.
And
the animated series.
The animated series,
which was a dark series.
So I'm looking at those characters, and then the way that he was done on movies, and then that's kind of the thing. Right. But if you notice,
on the flip,
every other character, except for recently the way they did Wonder Woman, I actually enjoyed that. I wasn't as big of a fan of Aquaman, but like with most of their characters, they don't really do a good job of showing, like, they don't make big splashes. We didn't get a big splash with Green Lantern. We didn't get it. I enjoyed the Flash TV show. I watched it up to a few seasons, but I think maybe that's a better way to do it.
And that's the thing about DC.
Arrow didn't land like that.
Arrow was great.
I know. I thought it was good, but its impact wasn't great.
Yeah.
Gotham, the impact of the show didn't really hit like that. You know,
Gotham is terrible. Don't ever mention Gotham.
But then you drop Iron Man, and Iron Man was like a craze,
right?
But I think another thing is, and I'm sorry, but I think a big thing about specifically the movies is, I think they were literally A+ when it came to their casting.
Yes,
and there is almost, other than the Hulk, and I was still actually more of a fan of
Eric Bana?
No.
Edward Norton.
Don't ever mention Eric.
There's only one Hulk. There's only one Hulk.
Don't ever,
If you ever, me and Antonio have a thing where we know that there's only one
Hulk
movie.
Allegedly, there was a Hulk movie that came out in the early 2000s.
Never heard of it.
With Eric Bana, but I don't know of what movie.
Who Eric Bana is.
I don't know of what movie,
You mean it was directed by the dude that did the gay cowboy movie?
I have no recollection.
That you probably
I have no recollection of the events in question.
Anyway.
So I know not of it, but I loved Edward Norton. I loved
that movie.
I loved how he captured very well the struggle of a person like the Hulk.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not against who they moved to, because again,
Mark Ruffalo.
The Hulk that we love, it's when he's green. But for the most part, I honestly can't think of any character of the superheroes. Now, there's some villains that I would love to have been recast, but I can't think of, even when we talk about Spider-Man, all three of the Spider-Mans, to me, they were all great. Like, I can't think of any Marvel characters where it's like they cast this guy or this woman, and I was like, I don't like this person, or this person can have done it way better. I like.
There's a lot of
when it was Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a lot of contention among the old nerds right now, the nerds who are like now pushing 30 and above, about how we now perceive Wolverine.
Well, because wasn't he small?
Wolverine's supposed to be like 5 foot.
He's like 5. Yeah, he's really small.
He's 5 even.
Were you might have been the one that I don't know if you shared it or my brother shared it.
Shared
but there's like him in every comic book.
There's a thread. There's a thread on Twitter that was going on a couple of days ago.
He's really small. Well, because he's a Wolverine.
He is He is the Wolverine. So again,
but that goes to the physical stature of superheroes and they made them to be
exactly. Because Wolverine looks like Danny DeVito
in the comics. Yes, yeah.
And I wonder what would those X-Men movies look like if they stuck with a cast?
Not the same.
No, because Hugh Jackman carried the X-Men movies, and every single X-Men movie,
his brawly physique and all of that is what made him what made him great. Wasn't there a point, I forget which one of the movies, where like he sits on a motorcycle, and that's kind of like their way to show how heavy he was, because he sits on it and it like
Right.
The whole motorcycle just when he gets on it. So
Right.
he's this massive guy in the movies compared to in the comics. I think there was one where he was next to Captain America and he was like at Captain America's chest.
Yes.
He
Wolverine,
was like-
which is again, like this is where Hollywood messes us up, because comics are about inclusion. Comics are about, I should be able to see who I am right now. Hollywood shows us Hollywood shows this is who you want to be.
Exactly. And Hollywood is playing a different game than directors and writers are playing two different games. There's a thing that you can get away with. Tarantino is probably the one guy that's getting close to like getting away with the literary tricks that he does, especially like with writing movies that are not chronological.
Mm-hmm.
And he even said this. He was like, why is it that a novelist can write a book that doesn't follow chronological order, but a movie maker can't, you know?
Right.
So there's this idea of for one, it makes, I would say from a technical standpoint, it's hard to shoot. It's hard to shoot a scene when you've got a superhero that's much smaller than everyone else.
Yeah.
So it visually doesn't look good. There's also like you said, this idea of like you're watching a movie, and when I consider you watching a movie, you're sitting back looking up at this massive screen, and there's this idea that Hollywood has always tried to make things larger than life.
Right.
And the way that it interprets written text has always been in a way that suits the screen more than a way that, I mean, obviously the best ones are the ones that are able to still maintain the goals of the writer,
Mm-hmm.
but they also have to suit the medium well. And I'm just thinking,
which
yes, it might have opened up a dialogue about inclusion with shorter men, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like either. No,
you know, but
sorry,
I don't know.
people.
I don't know. This is a funny conversation, but again, that like, so that's a good.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, what? Okay.
Oh, it's just a GoPro.
What does that mean? Battery died?
Maybe. Here, give it to me.
All right.
But I think that's a good bookend to this this part. But yeah, it's just interesting to see where we've gone. This is like really hot.
Yeah.
To see where we've gone from a visual standpoint of the way that these characters are portrayed,
mm-hmm.
and where we're going now. And I think to an extent honestly, when you think, now that I think about it, you gotta have it. They still gave it to us. They gave it to us with with Black Widow.
Yeah.
They gave it to us with Black Widow. Here is this very attractive woman.
Yeah.
And you know, she's also like a spy and she does these things.
And
they gave it to us with Thor. And you give us this very muscular, Chris, you know, here's the eye candy for those of you who want that. But they also gave us Iron Man. This guy with almost no physique.
Iron Man is a 40-year-old white guy, and that's what you see. You see a 40-year-old
so you
guy.
see that, because even when you if you think about his DC counterpart, you're like
Batman.
Yeah, other than the way that he was depicted in the Dark Knight trilogy, he's always been this big brawly guy. Like when you look at like the animated series, when he stands next to Superman,
right,
they're the same size,
right,
like that. And then you look at the way that for Ben Affleck's character. I was gonna say
Michael Keaton though.
See, those didn't. Michael Keaton didn't.
Was Michael Keaton seen as eye candy back in the 90s?
I don't know.
89.
I wouldn't be able to tell.
Maybe
I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I don't know. Is Christian Bale seen as eye candy?
I think See, this is why I don't like the Dark Knight trilogy, because Dark Knight trilogy does not give a good balance of Batman and Bruce Wayne.
That's why. See, to me, that's again. We keep talking about these things that are whole other discussions.
Yep.
As far as that's why when I say Ben Affleck, let me be more clear. I think he's the best Bruce Wayne.
Thank you.
Because he perfectly captured
this is
what it's like to be this guy who has all the money, who has all these things, but yet really he's lonely.
Yep.
And he's terribly paranoid
Yep.
because he's. I mean, could you imagine
And
you're living in this?
an old Bruce Wayne at that.
You're living in this city where all you're doing are fighting the mentally ill.
Yep.
And it's physically taxing, but it's also mentally taxing because you've seen great characters fall.
And we know that this is because this is a Bruce Wayne who's lost a Robin in one way or another. We don't know if this is Dick Grayson and that Robin has now become Nightwing, or we don't know if this is a Robin.
We didn't really get to see that fleshed out because they butchered this whole Justice League thing, and
which is wild. Are we going to talk about Are we taking a break?
I would rather not talk about.
Are we taking a break?
No.
Oh, okay. We can keep going.
We're almost done.
Oh, bro.
Kind of.
I don't know. We didn't really talk about. Did we talk about a lot? Did we talk about what we wanted to talk about?
No, but I'm about to make the segue and we can get there. But okay, so I did want to mention I wanted to talk about
Scorsese.
I think I want to close with that. But I think I did want to talk about, give a brief, and this will probably just be part one of superheroes, and we'll just
I was gonna say we're just gonna have to.
But I did want to talk about the just kind of a loose history of the evolution of the superhero and what it's become, and I think
right
and this is gonna be like 6 parts because then there has to be a whole part where we could talk about an idea of how the superhero movie might have hurt Hollywood, but I think we at one point have to really commend what it is that Marvel has done, because what they did over a 10 11 to 11 span was nothing short of amazing. The fact that there were 22 movies.
It's wild that this whole thing starts off with a movie. We're banking on this movie to work. We're banking on this movie to work between 3 studios. Paramount. Where was the Captain America movie? That was Paramount too. But there was another one.
Well, there was Sony.
Hulk.
Because Sony was Spider-Man.
Sony? Yes,
Sony was Spider-Man.
But you had these studios.
Hulk. I think Hulk was
Columbia.
Universal.
Yeah. So we're banking on. Yes, you're right. We're banking on these movies to work between multiple studios over a period of time. We know that this is going to be a 4-year thing.
Yeah.
This is all banking on the very, very, very first movie to be directed by an unknown director, to star Robert Downey Jr., who at the time
he was going through it.
He had sauntered his reputation in Hollywood.
He was going through it.
You know what movie he did right before Iron Man 1? It might not have been like right before, but you know what movie was the last thing he did before he did Iron Man? He was the villain in The Shaggy Dog. That is the movie with Tim Allen, where Tim Allen is a father or like some lawyer or something like that, who somehow gets turned into a dog. That was what Robert Downey Jr. was doing right before Iron Man 1. And Kevin Feige took a bet. And the wild thing is this. In Avengers Ultimate,
were they Disney yet?
No.
Was Marvel they hadn't brought them yet?
This wasn't even a thought. The wild thing is that in the comic book Avengers Ultimate, which came out maybe like 2005, 2006, they depicted Robert Downey Jr. in there. And this is pretty much, MCU is loosely based off of Avengers Ultimate.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr. in the actual character saying, "Yeah, like I'm glad I'll definitely play Captain America."
Yeah.
And it's wild.
I mean,
that's.
But yeah, wild. we got to come back to that, because to synchronize that many movies with different production companies, different directors. I mean, literally, you could have a guy like I can never say his last name. He did Ragnarok. I forget his. I'm sorry.
Taiki.
That's just white. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm bad at names. But you look at it. Yeah. So you look at Thor Ragnarok, which has a unique look.
Yeah.
Which is his, because he also did Guardians, right?
No, he also
who did Guardians.
That was I see his face. That was James Gunn.
Yes, because there was all that hoopla about him being fired, but then they brought him back or something. Because anyways, but again, okay, so you take that, you take James Gunn, you take those,
you take Ryan Coogler.
And I was going to get to that. So
Yeah.
you have these kind of, and I'm just take those three movies where you had
And
three different
You
directors.
take the woman. You take that woman director.
That's Richard.
No, I'm kidding. There was a woman who directed Captain Marvel, but with a male co-director.
See how they do the. Hey, so I just found out we're talking about comics, so I can squeeze this in.
Yeah.
So apparently Finn, in the third installment of the Star Wars, was supposed to lead an uprise of stormtroopers.
I remember reading about that before the movie came out. Want to know why?
You see how they do.
Which, you know what the wild thing is?
So yeah,
because don't get me wrong, because this person who runs a company about, let's just say the company is called Naughty Cyborg. I don't know. That's somebody who I really aspire to be. He's a director, he's a writer, he's a musician. But it's just so ironic to me that every single thing that I see this guy do, his black characters end up being nerfed in some way. Even to the point where he's producing a show with one of our favorite directors, Jordan Peele. And we were just talking about the show. I like it because it's about classical literature and horror and Journey Smollett.
Shout out to Lovecraft Country.
Journey Smollett. It stars.
Shout out to Courtney B. Vance. That's one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
I'm mad. I was really mad. I'm sorry. Never mind.
No,
People may not have seen it. So
Journey Smollett stars in the show. And it's just ironic to me that every single thing that this guy touches, from Star Wars to Star the other one that I can't, because I don't want you guys to know who I'm talking about. Why does he not treat black characters great? Zoe Saldana was in Star Other Thing, and
I'm not a Trekkian. I'm sorry, so I can't really speak much to the. But But I only say that because now I had some issues with Captain Marvel, is because I think they tried to push some things too overtly, and
instead of a natural thing. We should talk about that.
I think
that's a whole different conversation. Why does the appeal, the defense of feminism work in Wonder Woman, but it does not work in Captain Marvel?
Because I think the thing about Wonder Woman is, I'm just gonna be honest, I think Wonder Woman just has a more appealing story. And to me, the story of Captain Marvel, to me, was not very interesting. Like, she would have been, to me, she's one of the characters I think that they, like...
She's too powerful. This goes back to why
DC
movies, this is why... goes back to why... How do you make a good superhero movie, a good Superman movie nowadays?
See, and maybe that's a problem. She's not flawed enough.
She's too powerful.
It's difficult to make a movie about a character that's not flawed, or that doesn't have very many flaws. So it's like...
Yeah, she's perfect.
So yeah,
even
like
in
she's
the comics,
like
she's perfect.
She's like literally probably the strong, which is an interesting nod, because if you look at the MCU as they made it, probably if you want to talk about the top 5 strongest characters,
all women,
2 or 3 of them are, I would say at least 3 of them are women.
Characters or just characters? If you just want to say characters, all of them are women. Hela, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch. Like, the thing is,
well, you saw Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch was working Thanos, and that man had to yell rain fire, otherwise he's about to get worked.
The craziest thing is we haven't even seen the little bit of what Scarlet Witch can do.
We didn't see. Screen. I think we got the tip of it in Infinity Wars.
Yep.
And we got parts of. I think they had to balance a lot, because we didn't really get to see. We didn't get to see the peak of a lot of characters.
No, we didn't see.
We didn't see peak Hulk.
We didn't see peak.
We didn't see peak Thor.
You know what the crazy things? We didn't see peak Mantis. We didn't see peak. Going back to women characters, you didn't see peak Shuri. We haven't. But we still might see that. We might.
Maybe. We'll see where they go.
We haven't seen peak Ant-Man.
But I think that's because they had to push Tony Stark and Captain America to the forefront, because I think they knew that it was it for them.
Right.
So they had to get them, But so for the thing about Captain Marvel, I just felt like she just wasn't an interesting character. And then they then overlaid it with
90s nostalgia.
Kind of. And and maybe she's just not as good an actor either.
No, hell no. Don't you ever say that.
and that could be a part
You
of
know what
it.
the crazy thing is? Have you seen? I can't remember the name of the movie, but Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson, they made a movie like a year or two before they did Captain Marvel. That movie is great. It's about
She's also in. I just saw it.
she's in Room.
She's in Just Cause, the
Just
one with
Cause.
Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan, where Michael B. Jordan's a lawyer.
Yeah, nah, I'm kind of
She's
avoiding
in that.
like movies like that
It's
right
not
now.
bad. It's not bad.
Just Mercy.
Just Mercy. That's what it is. But yeah. So I mean,
I don't know.
but to me, so maybe I lied when I talked about all of the castings. She would probably be the one where.
I liked her.
Eh.
It just was not a good. It wasn't well written.
And that's what I'm saying. So I don't want to, you know,
I like. Brie
there's a lot to
Larson.
that, and
I like Brie Larson.
I think she's one of the characters that I don't think needed her own movie,
That I would say too.
or at least they could have waited to give us her movie.
The thing about Captain Marvel, truth be told, if they want to do Captain Marvel right, which I think they're doing now, they should have did it with Miss Marvel, who is Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
Who is pretty much I don't want to say it like this, but she one of the top intellect in MCU. She's runs with, for those who know, which is cool because we see Miles Morales into the Spider-Verse now. We see all these other things.
And reportedly they're gonna have Miles in the next.
I know it might be the kid from Black.
And then they might have Toby and Andrew Garfield.
Well, the thing is,
as multiverse characters,
Jamie Foxx is confirmed to be Electro again. Like that's
because Sony. I think because Sony
knows.
Sony's
sitting on a bag with the Spider-Man.
Okay, let me do my quick rant.
Rant away.
When it's come to the MCU, there has been this fantastic ability to put aside differences.
Yes.
We're trying to put together something that the people will love. So the fact that we have 3 different Spider-Mans is not the fault of anyone. It's just the way that character and the right to that character bounced around. He just happened to be made 3 different times. But why can't you? I mean, I compare him, and this is the problem with a movie like Batman. Mm-hmm. Is when a new movie comes out, all we're doing is we're bringing in our baggage. It's the same thing with Superman. We're bringing in our baggage. There's the old movies we've seen of him. Mm-hmm. There's the animated series and things that we've seen of him. Mm-hmm. And all of these things factor into whether or not we think this guy. And now we have another Batman that's about to be here. So this is like Batman number 6 on the screen, and 4, 5, or 6, something like that. And it's like,
7.
And so now we're having to, and each director is not really building off the last one. What they're doing is creating their own version of Batman.
Yes.
I think that I think that they did a good job with Superman, and there is the moment, and I'm not sure if this is confirmed, when Henry's character is trying to destroy the Earth machine or the world machine, where they're trying to make the world inhabitable for
the things.
Yeah,
I don't.
And there's a point in which the G force of whatever's coming out is hitting on his face, and his face is kind of like rippling because of the effect. And there's a point when a few frames where his face looks like Christopher Reeve's face.
Yes.
But I think the thing about Superman is there's only one way you can do Superman. You can't really do him too many different ways.
It depends on the studio.
It's hard, but it's still hard.
Let's go back to what I think you're trying to say.
Wait, really fast. I'll get there. It's just when you looked at the way at the way that they have done Batman, it's made it to where people like the first thing we did when I mentioned Batman, I mentioned Ben Affleck, and then you mentioned which one did you say? You mentioned Michael Keaton, you know. Whereas when we're talking about Spider-Man, it's like, well, how about we create a world where we can celebrate all of these guys?
Now that's what I wanted to get to. Spider-Man. I was actually just having this conversation with a couple friends. Spider-Man is the only comic book character where you can do a multiverse and do it right, because that's canon for him. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you expect and you know that there's multiple versions of Spider-Man. They even say it in Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles asks, how many Spider people are there? And And Spider-Man, Peter Parker says, "Well, wait till you get to Comic-Con," and that's amazing. And again, that's what's so beautiful about the character. We both have young sons.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful taking my son to see Into the Spider-Verse and watching Miles Morales and him saying, "That's me. I can be that." And then him looking at me and saying, "You're Peter Parker." And I'm like, "Yeah, like that's me." And then the numerous other Spider people, Spider-Punk is one of my favorite iterations. You got Peter from 1692. You got, or whatever it's called. You have all these different versions of Spider-Man. Why can't that happen on screen? We've already seen with movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. The fans will give you what the fans will pay for it if it's good.
And shout out to the MCU for listening to the fans.
Yes, listening to the fans, and then
and
also
not,
saying, and
to
not
a point, because
we, again, going back to the guy,
because Star Wars listened to the fans,
right?
And they butchered those movies.
Star Wars listens to the fan, exactly.
They listen to them old nerds,
the old racist white nerds
that showed up in 1972 or whenever that was to watch the first Star Wars.
The nerds,
and they had to appease them.
Exactly, and that's what I'm talking about. Sony can give us a good Spider-Verse, and I've been waiting for it. I thought we were gonna get that with Andrew Garfield. I thought we were gonna get that and see a Sinister Six with the Andrew Garfield stuff. We didn't, but I think Sony is going back and saying, "Yo, like, let's just make a comic book movie." And this goes back to Doom Patrol. We are finally getting to a place in media for comics. This hasn't happened before, where they're going to give us money, and I say us like I do it, but the fans, they're giving the fans money for, Doom Patrol is probably the weirdest comic book ever. One of the characters in this universe, or that happens in the Doom Patrol universe, is a street. No, there's nothing else to that. A street. And you know what? They showed it on a show. And never in my life would I ever think that a character like Danny the Street would be on a show. Not just as a, like, now you know that this character is this. No, like, no, this is a major plot point. And we finally have that. Like, and it's beautiful. Because, like I said, this is why I love comics. And now this is where we like do like the sentimental like piano stuff. This is why I love comic books and comic book movies. Because again, where else can I see a skinny black kid who is hood adjacent and intelligent and cares about stuff? I see that in Miles Morales. I see that in a Deathlock. I see that in, man, so many other characters. War Machine. You see that in so many different ways. Now Riri Williams. Now Luna from Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. There's so many different versions of this happening.
That is Richard Blacksher's way of saying, "Screw you, Martin Scorsese. Who are you to say what real cinema is?"
For real.
But really quick, I want to touch on that. Scorsese he's on my Mount Rushmore. I think he's fantastic. I absolutely love what he does, and I respect his opinion. He has the right to have his opinion. But what I think that he discounts, or I don't know, he just comes off as the, "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn" type. That's what it comes off
old
as.
Man yells at cloud.
Instead of look at where we've got. To me, that's the way I see it. I mean, obviously, we can have a whole conversation about how special effects have negatively impacted cinema, and how different tricks and all these things that people do that cause them to forget and miss out on story. Yeah. And but I think with what, and I'll just stick specifically to Marvel, I just think what they were able to do, to me, captured the idea of the movie theater. And I talked about this in a couple episodes. It's this idea where, like, if we want to go to Broadway, if me and Richard Blacksher right now want to go to Broadway, we're going to have to shell a few $100.
Yeah.
And that's if we want to go sit at the top level. Exactly. If we want to be in front of the stage, we're paying $400 or $500. We gotta
If
we
we're
gotta have
the,
a
for the
suit.
premier experience of a Broadway theater production. Yeah, right now we're looking at $800 minimum.
But right now, well, no, not right now because everything's
COVID.
closed. But like right now, me and him could go to a movie theater and spend $12, $13 for a matinee movie and actually get to
And enjoy it.
and get to watch something that we used to read about, and now we could see those things that sparked our imagination. We get to actually see it on screen, which to me is the beauty of what we're seeing here. Is all because when you're looking at graphic novels, all you can do, I mean, they give you slides in which you can kind of see a progression of action, and it's up to you based off of that and its use of onomatopoeia and text and all these things
That was a good word.
to pow and wham and whap and all these things.
That's onomatopoeia.
You have to imagine the action. And then we saw a man get into a metal suit and fly around, and we actually got to see it to where now it wasn't on a page anymore. Now it was on a big screen, and we got to go to a place where we got to enjoy that. So no, maybe it's not as thought-provoking as Taxi Driver.
Oh, he did Taxi Driver.
But
I like Taxi Driver.
But not every movie has to be Listen.
Can we talk about Joker?
Really quick,
Okay.
and we will close with Joker. I know he's, and that'll be it because we'll debate Joker. I think what happens is nostalgia when it comes to a lot of the arts, and I would say specifically film and music.
Yes.
Nostalgia plays a big part of how we judge things. So we'll say it's a lot of bad movies made today. There's a lot of bad music out today. Back in the 70s, it was all great. I guarantee you, if I went back to the 70s, I would find some bad music.
Because oh hell yeah.
But what happens is, like everything, the cream rises to the top.
Mm-hmm.
We forget about the bad stuff, and all we remember are the lasting things.
Right.
And then we say, we think, oh wow, the 90s had no bad music. It's just no. We just happen to remember the good things more. That's just what we do as people. We tend to remember good more than we do bad. The attempt is not, and especially if it was bad. If it was bad, we never even gave it much thought anyway. So why would we ever remember a bad song?
That's a really good point.
So to me, it's the same thing with movies. It's like there's always been the idea of telling a story. Now, what that story is, who that story relates to, that's the beauty of cinema, is that you have the idea to tell a story that way. This lady over here, she could tell a story this way. This kid over here, he could tell a story one way. This guy over here, and they can all tell whatever type of story they want to tell, and it'll all premiere on this screen, and we all get to sit back and watch it, and we get to say whether or not it's good. We get to say, I don't like it, or we get to say, you know what, I loved it, because every movie don't have to be for every person. So if you don't like it,
now,
to me, because if you don't like the way that a person shot a movie or then judge it as that. Then just say, you know what, I didn't like the cinematography well. I didn't think it was written well. I don't think it was whatever. But to say that it's not cinema because it's not the type of movie that you would make, or the type of movies that, and again, we have to think about. And I'm sorry, I know you're bubbling.
No,
I know you're bubbling.
I am.
But to me, cinema, it's a lot like basketball. Basketball has evolved.
Yeah.
As it's supposed to.
Yes.
So guys aren't just dribbling like this anymore. So we could go back and we can knock those guys and say, well, those guys weren't good. Well, those guys were dealing with all they had.
Right.
There was no precedent for them. So to them, they were great. And then guys saw that, and then they added to it, and they added to it, and they added to it. And to me, film is the same way. Those guys had limitations, and they did things based off of those limitations. And then guys saw those and then said, what can I do that's better than that? And how can I add on to that? And then so film, just like, because there was a point when filmmakers used to think that audio in film was a bad thing.
Right.
So if we really want to talk about what cinema is, you having actors that are actually giving dialogue, that's not cinema.
Right.
So this whole idea that you get to tell me that is your definition, respectfully, I would just have to disagree with the great Martin Scorsese.
Michael Che has
end rant.
Michael Che has a quote from the Dave Chappelle, what's it called, induction into the Mark Twain Award or whatever it's called. And he
Yeah.
says, most comedians nowadays have the privilege of growing up watching a Dave Chappelle, and that is what Scorsese has, and Spielberg has made comments too regarding Netflix, and I think that's kind of the thing that where I'm kind of taken aback because it's like, yo, Spielberg, you made Jaws, and I remember being in a class when I was doing screenwriting, um, and a professor was like, "Yeah, when Jaws came out, people thought Jaws ruined cinema."
Yeah,
And how many times have we heard that?
It
right?
was the blockbuster.
It was a blockbuster.
This idea that hey, now people are going to start making movies that get people to come to the theater.
Right, and it's incredible because movies are so. Oh God, maybe we do need to just do
Yes, this is a whole
for
nother one.
multiple-
Okay, don't go there because I know where you want to go.
I know where I want to go.
But let's just do this before we close.
Can I say?
Before we close, I know we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. I'm gonna segue you in. I thought
Joker?
the Joker was a fantastic film.
The Joker, what? Taxi Driver.
Perfect example.
Taxi Driver is a great
here's
movie.
Here's how we kill the Scorsese argument, because you know Scorsese was an executive producer.
For Joker?
I believe he was.
No way.
I believe he was.
I believe he was. Only because
he was attached to it. And we know that it was a Taxi Driver.
Yes.
It was an ode to Taxi Driver.
Yes.
But here's the thing. That movie only works because of superhero movies.
Yes.
You can only tell the story of Joker
because this is what comic book movies are.
Because exactly, the world has already been established.
Exactly.
So all you have to do is talk about this one guy.
Here's what people don't understand about comics, and I feel like an advocate or an apostle for comic books, because this is really what people don't understand. When you pick up a comic book right now, you and me, we go to the comic book store. Yeah. I live in Loma Linda. If I take Antonio to my comic book store, shout out a shop called Quest.
We've gone there. Last time I went, I bought some comics there.
Yes, sir. If I go to my comic book store right now, I'm gonna give Antonio a X-Men comic without context. Antonio doesn't need to know who the character Antonio already knows the X-Men characters.
I know enough. You know enough. Even if you've never watched any of the X-Men movies,
right?
You've seen enough to understand the general idea of superheroes,
will
therefore be able to adjust.
That's all it is. And this is why now this goes back to DC. DC Comics have done some of the most creative things in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is one of the weirdest things. It's called Milk Wars. And they say, okay, what if we took all these characters you already know Batman, you know Superman, you know Wonder Woman, you know the Justice League. We're going to put them in a universe where milk is money. And they literally have wars over milk. That is weird as hell and will never be on the screen. But what if studios thought like that? What if studios had more foresight to say, we already have this Joker character. We've already seen Heath Ledger is arguably the greatest Joker of all time. He cemented the role. He made it iconic in the same way that Michael Keaton made Batman iconic, in the same way that Christopher Reeve and Christopher West?
Adam West.
And Adam West did Batman, right?
Superman.
Superman. Adam West, Batman.
Well, Adam West is Batman, but yeah, Christopher Reeve,
Superman,
yeah.
Right? So now that we have the staple of what Joker is, why don't we do more with this? No one has to be. Joaquin Phoenix did, and I don't like Joaquin Phoenix, but Joaquin Phoenix did not have to be a better Joker than Heath Ledger.
He just had to tell his.
He had to do his version.
But
that's where Jared Leto messes up. Jared Leto is trying to be better than Heath Ledger.
He was trying to do his version of Heath Ledger instead of hey, let me interpret what Todd Phillips is trying to do here, and I'm going to create that. But again, all of this only works because you already know about Gotham.
Yeah.
So those movies that are just amusement parks,
right?
You were able to build an Academy-nominated movie that was based off of that,
and because I disagree. Superhero movies are not amusement parks. It's not. If I go to when things are closed, but you go to Disneyland, Disneyland says this is where the fun is, This is how we have fun presented for you. Comic book movies, superhero movies in general, and I'm gonna just say comic book movies because again, like Road to Perdition, like Watchmen, like V for Vendetta, comic book movies say, okay, the amusement park is the world. The amusement park is you got popcorn. The amusement park is you're gonna sit down for a little bit.
I mean, the theater is an attraction,
right?
You know,
right? Exactly. Comic book movies are saying, no, this is camp. We're going to tell you a story. It might be a scary story. It might be a story that you'll laugh at. It might be a story with fart jokes. Either way, you are away from your home. You're away from your environment right now, and I'm going to tell you a story in a way you've never heard it before.
Comic books are the things of fairy tales.
Yes.
This idea of being able to talk about these mythic characters, these characters plagued with certain, you know, to me it is our modern day mythology.
It is.
This idea that there are all the you go back to Greek mythology.
Oh my God! Thank you.
There are all these characters. There are all these characters that are flawed, and they've all got these issues that they deal with, but they have their strengths.
I'm sitting like this now, so you know I'm in teacher mode. When we look at Greek literature, when we study Homer, and when we study the Iliad and things like that, Homer, when he would tell stories about the Greek mythology and things like that to people, they already knew these. They were worshiping Zeus. They were worshiping Apollo. They were wary of, woodland fairies and things like that. All Homer did was say, you already know about these things. Let me just tell you this version of how this thing happened or how that thing happened. Was that, I say gospel, Hercules reference. Is that the gospel truth of what those stories are? Probably back in the day, probably not. But what Homer did was say, this is how we will present it to you for now on, so that way you have it. And it's the same thing with, again, comic book movies and TV shows. There's The Boys right now on Amazon, probably another great superhero show. And The Boys shows this dichotomy of, okay, we already know Superman is the ultimate good and is the American good guy. So it's based off a comic called The Boys. Why don't we have this character called Homelander who is this twisted version of Superman? And you've also seen this twisted version of Superman in the other James Gunn movie that just came out about the little boy who is the evil alien kid. Bloodborne?
No. Brightburn. Yeah.
Right. So again, you have the ability to use this medium of comics and cinema together, blend those things together. And it's beautiful.
It's just stories.
I
mean, we put on the fluff and you add the CG and you do all this stuff, but in the end, they're just stories.
In the end, if again, talking about Doom Patrol, like I said, is probably one of the greatest shows I've watched right now. And Cyborg from Justice League is one of not the character, not the actual actor, but Cyborg is one of those characters that's in the show, and they drop it all the time. Can you introduce me to Superman? Blah 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 blah. But the show Doom Patrol is not about these epic adventures. It's not about fighting a bad guy every week. They spend like 5 episodes literally dealing with the trauma of having superpowers.
Yep.
The trauma of Cyborg being more metal than machine. The trauma of one character who is like Elastigirl. Actually, her name is Elastigirl.
Yeah.
She can't control her stretchiness.
The trauma of that. What we would categorize those things as Greek tragedies.
Yes.
These ideas these ideas of these characters who have a great power, but alongside that great power is a tremendous burden, and them having to balance the idea of how can they stay true to what they are, how can they be respectful of the power that they have.
Yeah.
How can they make an impact on the culture that is in negative? I mean, there's all these different elements that come out. Now,
the more we talk about it, I'm gonna actually, the more we talk about it, Scorsese, you're right. Comic book movies are superhero movies and things like that. They are not cinema. They are literature. And because you don't know anything about literature, you should just shut the. I'm kidding.
Are you covering up the? There you go.
Cover up
there we
the
go.
logos, yeah.
But all right, I mean, yeah, as you can see, we can go on forever.
This is gonna be this is fine because we're just doing play dates with the boys, so that helps.
True. So Richard, tell the people what you have going on.
Oh yeah, this is why I do this stuff.
So you can just make shameless plugs.
Yeah, sorry. I made an EP in the summer called Apocalypse Now, which is literature. So I'm kidding, it's not literature. It is. Please stream it and stuff. I'm also going to be working pretty soon with some other stuff, and you and me are supposed to be doing something next year.
Probably.
No, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I'm doing though? I'm putting out. I'm re-releasing the old stuff.
Like six
songs in the movie.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack. Do you still have the movie?
I remember the soundtrack. No, it might still be on. YouTube. I might link it here if I can find it.
All right.
On YouTube, it's the first short film I ever did.
Yeah, we're gonna re-release it.
It wasn't very good, but it was fun. It was a
learning experience.
It was the first thing I ever shot.
That was I think that was the first script I wrote in its completion.
But there were still some great moments from that I would love to, like the shot at the lights at LACMA.
That was tight.
Yes. There were some great moments out of
the Culver City at night stuff.
Yeah, we shot that hella gorilla.
Like we didn't even know what gorilla meant, and we were shooting gorilla.
I think that's funny. I didn't have as many fears or reservations then as I do now.
Right. I think the funny thing we definitely need to just do another. I'm gonna just give you like hella content.
Yeah, we're gonna do this is gonna be like 5 episodes. This is part 1. We'll talk about it.
God. All right. So we're just scheduling another day.
Sure.
All right. Let's do that.
Have your people call my people, and we'll do lunch.
Actually, I'm looking for an intern. So if anybody needs college credit, it's here. I can do that for you.
Anybody need college credit?
Hey,
talk to that guy,
please.
He's been Richard. I've been Antonio. We're out.
Oh, I've never gotten to the end of these things. Is that how it ends?
Yes.
Dreams. I dream. In the ink of rusted iron chains, aged 400 years, give or take a lifetime of colonization. Through the butt cracks of pants sagging, prison orange fashion, pants sagging. On the grease perm, jerry curled, conch lean, fried, dyed.